About 30 miles south of Sacramento, tucked into the Delta, sits the historic town of Locke. Built in 1915, Locke is the last remaining rural Chinatown in America, according to the Locke Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the town's legacy.
My mother was born here, and this is Grandma's building. The bedroom used to be right here.
Corliss Lee grew up in Locke and nearby Walnut Grove, just a mile away.
Here I used to come and play after school.
Today, she's co-producer of a new documentary, Voices, Chinese Women of the Delta.
My mother came as a paper daughter.
The film grew out of an oral history project launched by the Locke Foundation, a mission to preserve the memories of those raised in the area.
Most of the time we had men's voices, and I thought, wait a minute, something's really missing. And I thought about my own family, which really gave me the impetus of interviewing the women.
Bay Area filmmaker Min Zhao came on board, and the project became a documentary. Carol Lee, who also grew up in the Delta, was a major part of the project as well.
It was not a Chinese woman's world. It is a male-dominated culture, and so because of that, the Chinese women are marginalized. They aren't used to speaking out in public.
Producers interviewed nearly a dozen women who grew up here in Locke and in surrounding communities about their and their families' early memories of the Delta.
My mother was very, very special. I wouldn't call her a gentlewoman because she was powerful and empowered. She, during the war, was not Rosie the Riveter. She was a welder. She, not knowing any English, worked at the Mare Island shipyard.
Carol Lee's family later opened a grocery store in Walnut Grove, giving back to neighbors while working long hours.
That spirit of anything is possible, I never even realized it until I got older and went through life myself, what that all meant.
Everybody thinks that we're meek and mild, and I wanted to tell the truth about what they did. For example, my grandmother raised her daughters to be very independent. My mother, her father arranged a marriage for her. She told him, if you like him so much, you marry him. And I thought, that's not meek and mild. She stood up for herself. And then my mother became a very successful businesswoman.
Lee's mother ran the family department store in Locke and then Walnut Grove.
This is the building, Limkey's department store.
Lee says she felt empowered growing up in the Delta, which carried her through her adult life.
I became a home builder and developer in the Bay Area. Growing up here, we learned that there were no limitations.
Many of the women in the film followed similar paths, growing up in the Delta, going off to college and careers, and returning later in life, often to care for aging parents.
It's really important to water right now.
We met Daisy Ma as she volunteered at the WPA Rock Garden in Sacramento's Land Park, where she worked before retirement. She grew up in Walnut Grove, where her father was a barber and her mother raised 6 children.
She was really opinionated and forceful and hardworking.
Though she remembers the challenges of a language barrier.
A lot of women, like my mother, she never really was able to develop fully, I don't think, because she didn't know the language and there weren't programs to help her. I don't know, I really feel now for immigrants because I can see my parents struggle.
This is Locke, and this happened to be my brother-in-law's Chevrolet, 1938, I think.
Nidhi Young was born in Walnut Grove and moved to Locke when she was 3. Now 96, Young has stories of the women from her community, including her eventual mother-in-law.
Her family lived in Locke. She was one that went back to college when she was in her 40s.
Young's own mother ran the family restaurant and later worked in the Delta canneries.
So many of the women in Locke, especially my mother's generation, they were never seen. So for the women now to be recognized and acknowledged, I think that's important.
Young went to school and became a teacher and credits the strength and determination of the Chinese women of her mother's generation.
I think it influenced a lot of the women that were growing up to be a little more independent, because after high school, most of us left Locke to school, to work.
Some women say they experienced racism and prejudice.
It was kind of, like not obvious, but every now and then something would happen. and it was pretty ugly.
Daisy Ma describes an encounter when someone mistook her for Japanese and used an anti-Japanese slur. ABC 10 spoke with everyone interviewed for this story about whether to include this, and they said it's an important anecdote to share to highlight what some in the community experienced.
I was maybe about 11. I went to the post office, and as I was leaving, another Caucasian woman was there, and something terrible must have happened, World War II or something, and so she, was calling me a Jap. And I don't think I took it I didn't cry or anything. I just was surprised. I wish I knew why she was so angry.
Others say the all-Chinese community of Locke shielded them from prejudice.
I remember talking to my grandmother, and I asked her if she ever experienced any racism. And she said no. The community was safe. It was all Chinese. There wasn't any racial discrimination or anything like that.
I'm mixing my dialect.
The documentary premiered in March at the California Museum with a discussion of the film afterward.
Thank you all for sharing your beautiful stories.
Co-producer Douglas Xia said time is of the essence.
The documentary is important because we noticed that the people who grew up in Locke, or the descendant of the prior residents of Locke, they are all into the age of 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
The history needs to be told, needs to be remembered. I think it's important that we keep the history going.
In Locke, Becca Habiger, ABC 10.